signed more legislation than anybody who broke the record of Harry Truman. And they were saying, if we get this big tax cut, because that's the legislation of all legislation.
Hundreds of thousands of people will flock here to Times Square to watch the ball drop. Expect the most security ever for the event after 2 terror attacks in as many months.
Disneyland, Walt Disney's original theme park, which calls itself the happiest place on earth, hit with a major power outage Wednesday during one of the park's busiest weeks of the year.
All the lights go off.
Good morning to you from New York City. You're watching Fox and Friends First on this Thursday morning. I'm Heather Childers. Hopefully all of you had a great Christmas. It's nice to be back with you. And we do begin this morning, though, with a Fox News alert. Some breaking news. At least 35 are dead and dozens more injured after bombing attacks overnight in Kabul, Afghanistan. At least 3 explosions. One believed to be a suicide attack erupting near a Shiite Muslim cultural center and an Afghan news agency. And many of the victims, we're told, are students. Right now, no one has claimed responsibility, but the Taliban denies any involvement. So we'll stay on top of that for you. Also breaking overnight, Russian President Vladimir Putin calling a bombing at a St. Petersburg supermarket terrorism. A homemade device packed with shrapnel exploding through a store, injuring 13 people there. No terrorist organization has claimed responsibility there either. Putin phoned President Trump earlier this month, you may remember, thanking President Trump for a tip that helped stop other bombings in Russia's second largest city. And a former State Department employee with ties to Senator John McCain subpoenaed over connections to the fake Trump dossier. The House Intelligence Committee demanding answers from McCain Institute staffer David Kramer about his reported firsthand knowledge of the bogus report. Now, according to some court records, Kramer met with the author hired by Fusion GPS to write the dossier that helped kickstart the FBI Russian probe. So lots breaking this morning to look into throughout the day. But in the meantime, President Trump is ending 2017 on a high note, visiting some of our nation's heroes at a West Palm Beach fire station while touting his accomplishments and firing back at his predecessor. Griff Jenkins joins us now from Washington, D.C. with more on this. Good morning, Griff. How you doing?
Hey, good morning, Heather. Welcome back. That's right. The president is spending his final days of 2017. He visited West Palm Beach Fire Station number 2. He thanked firefighters, paramedics, and first responders, and he delivered somewhat of a report card on his own administration's accomplishments.
The stock market hit a new high 84 times since we won the election on November 8th of last year. So that's something we can all be proud of. That's a record level. We have the all-time record for stopping ridiculous regulations, and we're very proud of that record. Now you can go back to work and do your job.
And he has stayed busy on Twitter addressing all number of things from next year's legislative agenda to the Russia probe, and even taking a shot at former President Obama as news of the defeat of ISIS came to light, tweeting this picture comparing the day he was inaugurated on January 20th with an estimated 35,000 ISIS fighters with vast swaths of territory in Iraq and Syria to estimates last week of just 1,000 firefighters, ISIS fighters left. But the former President Obama hasn't remained silent. In an interview with the soon-to-be married Prince Harry, he took aim at President Trump without mentioning him by name, but certainly making it clear he was referring to President Trump's Twitter habits.
One of the dangers of the internet is that people can have entirely different realities. They can be just cocooned in information that reinforces their current biases.
And now there are no public events scheduled today as the president remains in Florida through the new year. But we do know already, Heather, that the president has scheduled a meeting with Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell at Camp David the following weekend, January 6th and 7th, to talk about that new legislative agenda. Stay tuned to Twitter. We may hear yet more about what he hopes to accomplish.
Yeah, I have a feeling we'll hear more on Twitter for sure. All right. Thank you so much, Griff. Have a great day.
You too.
Well, President Trump, meantime, taking a jab at President Obama, as you just heard Griff talking about, taking a jab at President Trump without even saying his name. Opinion editor for the Washington Times, Charles Hurt, calling out the former president, saying that Twitter is a way for President Trump to get around the vicious media that despises him and communicate directly with the American people.
This reminds me of how obnoxious President Obama can be. He goes over to the BBC and talks to Prince, whatever his name, William, or whatever he is, whatever his title is,
Harry,
and whatever. And he does this interview where he's clearly attacking the president. And this notion that you're going to attack the president for using Twitter is akin to me attacking FDR for using the newfangled radio to do his fireside chats. It's just a form of communicating with people and a way he can communicate with people around a media that viciously despises him.
And this isn't the first time that President Obama has criticized President Trump. Most recently, he took aim at the current president in a Paris climate change speech saying, quote, "We have a temporary absence of American leadership on the issue." A lot of people talking about whether or not he's violating the Logan Act. Walking a very close line there, President Obama is. Well, record-breaking snowfall burying parts of Pennsylvania and New York. Huge amounts as bitter cold temperatures grip the nations. Look at this, just covered there. Upstate New York issuing a state of emergency, in fact, and a travel advisory.
I've not seen this. I've lived here my whole life, and I've not seen it for a couple of years here. So we've really gotten hit this year.
Well, Lorraine firefighters rescuing a woman trapped in her home using shovels and a plow to dig her out. And then this happened, a small plane skidding off a snowy runway in Indiana, sliding right into a cornfield. And now a major Arctic blast in the Northeast. Temperatures this morning feeling like 20 to 30 degrees below zero. That's below zero. The bitter cold expected to last through the new year. Quite a way to ring it in, huh? Well, power, in the meantime, is restored overnight at Disneyland after a massive outage that brought rides to a standstill. A lot of people stranded in the dark during one of the park's busiest weeks of the year. You would imagine that. Ellison Barber has the latest on what went wrong.
Disneyland, Walt Disney's original theme park, which calls itself the happiest place on earth, hit with a major power outage Wednesday during one of the park's busiest weeks of the year. The outage disrupting a number of park attractions for hours, leaving some passengers reportedly stranded for at least 20 minutes on several popular rides.
We were in a small world and all the lights go off.
What do you feel about the idea of a power failure kind of affecting your day?
It's disappointing.
Some guests say they had to wait to be escorted from stalled rides. Disney blames an issue with a transformer that supplies power to the Toontown and Fantasyland sections of the park. The famed monorail, It's a Small World, and Pirates of the Caribbean rides were among the attractions affected. Some park visitors voiced complaints and asked for refunds via social media. At the time of the outage, Disney's LA TV station reported the park was packed at near capacity for the day. Fire crews in Anaheim say no rescues were made. The 85-acre park receives some 44,000 visitors a day. Wednesday's power outage initially unfolded around 10:45 a.m. Electricity was fully restored by 4:30 p.m. local time. I'm Ellison Barber, Fox News.
All right, glad they got that back. And the Powerball jackpot surging to $384 million overnight after no one hit the jackpot. Last night's $337 million drawing tied for the 25th largest in U.S. history. And check your tickets, though. There were some smaller winners. The numbers, in case you didn't see them, they were 3, 9, 16, 56, 60 with the Powerball number of 3. The next drawing is Saturday. Your odds of winning, 1 in 292 million. But your odds are 0 if you don't play, right? Well, the time now is about 9 minutes after the top of the hour. And New Year's Eve lockdown from New York to Las Vegas, how police are preparing for anything in the wake of recent attacks. And it will be a happy new year for the dozens of convicted criminals who just got a get-out-of-jail-free card from New York Governor Andrew Cuomo, illegal immigrants included. And Putin, the peacekeeper, the Kremlin wants to play middleman, apparently, between America and North Korea, where our next guest says that it's all smoke and mirrors. Welcome back to Fox and Friends First. At least 18 convicted immigrant criminals no longer facing deportation thanks to that man right there, Andrew Cuomo. The New York governor passing down 61 total pardons, 39 of which involved teens with minor crimes. Now, this is the second time that Cuomo has pardoned immigrants, defiantly challenging President Trump's promise to crack down on illegal immigration. And he is not alone. Illegal immigrants also catching a break in California. The Orange County Sheriff's Department will no longer check the immigration status of inmates. Deputies also will not alert ICE agents of undocumented offenders. This in coordination with the so-called sanctuary state bill going into effect January 1st. And Governor Jerry Brown signed the bill back in October, prohibiting local police officers from helping enforce immigration laws. Well, switching gears now, Vladimir Putin says that he's now ready to play peacemaker. The Russian president offering to mediate talks between North Korea and the United States. A spokesperson for the Kremlin saying that Russia's readiness to clear the way for de-escalation is obvious. And would Putin really help ease tensions on the world stage, or would Russia's involvement further strain the situation? Here now to weigh in is national security and foreign policy analyst Ari Aramesh. Thank you so much for joining us, Ari. We appreciate it.
Good morning to you, too.
So does this sound like a good idea to you, Russia as peacemaker between the U.S. and North Korea?
No, it doesn't. First and foremost, it's not North Korea versus the U.S. It's North Korea versus the entire international community. There have been so many United Nations Security Council resolutions unanimously passed against North Korea and its nuclear tests and its intercontinental missile tests that places North Korea as probably the pariah, the most sort of pronounced pariah in the international community. So by trying to have the Russians mediate between the U.S. and North Korea, we're trying to redefine this problem as a U.S.-North Korea problem. And as a matter of fact, this is a North Korea versus the rest of the world problem, first and foremost. Secondly,
Go ahead. Your second point.
Secondly, the Russians are not a good mediator. The Russians are perhaps in the top 5 sort of countries of violators of international norms and international law. So by rewarding the Russians, who have long sought to gain their Soviet Union sort of superpower status, a mediator or a moderator or a broker position between the U.S. or the international community and North Korea, we're in effect elevating them back to the world stage as a responsible actor that they're not.
And that was going to be my question to you. What would Russia's goal here be? Because we already know that their goal was to completely disrupt political activities here in the United States. This would further enable Democrats possibly to use this as leverage in upcoming elections as well.
Absolutely. Look at what Russia has done so far. They're accused of having interfered or having tried to interfere in German, French, British, and U.S. elections. They are accused of having sort of waged waves of attacks online, on social media, and so on and so forth by creating sort of creating emotional and political wars between various factions within these countries. Now, Russia has been trying for years now to try to influence political action and political sort of calculations and equations in the Western world and try to sort of pit one Western country and one NATO country against another. By elevating them again to this status, we are yet granting them another get free, get out of jail card. And yes, there will be some serious questions. The president has yet to enforce sanctions against Russia. The president has yet to take tougher measures against Russian interference in Ukraine, Russian interference in Europe, and so on and so forth. And the president has yet to sort of tell us whether he agrees with his own intelligence community analysis that the Russians tried to interfere in U.S. elections and in other elections in the Western world. So yes, if the president does in fact bring the Russians in as mediator, there will be some major questions posed to President Trump.
I seriously doubt that would ever happen, along with the fact that there are obviously the allegations that Russia itself has been aiding North Korea and Iran in terms of their nuclear developments as well, which we can't even get into. Ari, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time this morning. We'll have you back, okay?
Of course.
Thanks. Have a great day. Well, the time now is about 18 minutes after the top of the hour. Hurt, wounded, and whimpering in pain. Dazed victims of the